臨近省選，多倫多多個團體喺9月29號合辦咗新聞發佈會，主題為省選投票、爭回家長、學生權利，呼籲大家要對安省自由黨近期推行嘅平等及包容教育政策作出關注。在場人士代表約100個政治中立嘅組織，包括唔同嘅宗教團體、家長會、教育界、維護生命及政策研究組織等等，主要希望提高市民對呢個教育政策嘅認識，從而明白佢對兒童嘅成長有幾深嘅影響。因為呢個政策要求所有公校，包括天主教學校，由幼稚園開始教導性教育課程，內容涉及唔少關於同性戀、雙性戀、變性等多種非傳統道德價值觀嘅題材，完全有違反傳統家庭同埋婚姻嘅觀念。但係對家長同學生係冇選擇嘅權利，所以唔少家長認為佢哋教育子女嘅權利係受到剝削。以下嘅片段係當日發佈會內所有嘉賓嘅言論。
由超過100個不同嘅宗教團體同埋族裔團體咧，去舉行嘅一個叫做省選投票爭回家長學生權利嘅聯合新聞發佈會。我嘅名字叫做樂希，我係今日嘅大會司儀。咁喺開始我哋今日嘅記者招待會嘅時候呢，先呢，我哋會為你介紹我哋今日座上嘅所有發言嘅嘉賓嘅。我哋有嚟自多倫多天主教華人聯會嘅江如天先生 ，Mr. Ferrier 同樣係嚟自多倫多天主教華人聯會嘅 ，Miss 蘇叔係由呢一個韓裔基督教世界嘅代表嘅。我哋有維護生命運動聯盟嘅 Mr. Jeff Goodison， 跟住呢，我哋有Miss Goran Landos， 加拿大真婦女聯會，跟住我哋亦都有大家熟悉嘅謝安博牧師嚟自基督教銀禧中心，跟住呢，我哋亦都有嚟自安省天主教家長會嘅 Miss Teresa Pierre， 最後呢，我哋亦都有安省華文教育協會嘅代表黃少偉醫生。咁呢個時候呢，我哋先將我哋嘅咪交俾我哋大會召集人陳家年教授呢，同我哋講幾句説話。有請陳家年教授。
好多謝大家，原因咧就係多謝我哋嗰個媒介咧，能夠將我哋而家今次嘅信息係放出去。個信息就係喺呢個嘅大選嘅期間咧，呢個省嘅大選期間咧，其實好重要嘅一個議題咧，就係呢個家長嘅權利同埋呢個嘅細蚊仔嘅將來，因為經濟或者就業或者之類嘅嘢。每一個政府、每一個政黨咧，其實做嘅嘢咧都唔會爭得太遠。但係如果萬一喺呢個細蚊仔嘅前途，佢因為佢受教育嘅影響咗佢嘅前途之後咧，就影響咗我哋安省或者甚至乎加拿大嘅前途咧，係會好多嘅。咁但係家長係最容易了解佢自己細蚊仔，咁所以咧亦都係佢哋本來就應該有一個基本嘅權利。點樣決定佢細蚊仔去點受乜嘢嘅教育，尤其是例如性教育啊，你一陣會聽得比較更多㗎啦。咁所以呢，我哋希望能夠俾每一個嘅多元嘅族裔同埋多元宗教、多元文化嘅我哋呢啲嘅講者呢，係表達佢哋每一個會嘅自己嘅意見。
I'm Ferrier Wu. I'm representing the Toronto Chinese Catholic Task Force. Many of our members are also parents.of students attending Catholic and public schools in the Greater Toronto area. We are concerned with the deterioration of our school systems, in particular, the proposed sex education curriculum in early grades, and equity and inclusive education policy fought by the Minister of Education to our school systems.As members of the Chinese culture, we consider moral and family values very important in our education system. During the process of these policies, parents were not consulted and our concerns were not considered. We appeal to all party leaders and candidates in this Ontario election to please.Hear parental requests to support parental rights in education. We respect all people and we also want to be respected. Give us back our basic rights, social, moral, religious, and parental. We also appeal to all Ontario voters. The forthcoming Ontario provincial election gives Ontarians the opportunity to vote for candidates who respect and defend the rights of the people, parents, and children. Candidates who will pledge to end this excessive intervention by the state, which threatened personal freedoms. Thank you.
Real Women of Canada is deeply concerned about the policy introduced in Ontario by the Liberal government in 2008 with the objective of supposedly promoting diversity and inclusion in the schools. In fact, this policy is both destructive and discriminatory. It prohibits parents from exercising their right as the first and primary educators of their children in accordance with Article 26.3 of the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which requires that, quote, parents have a prior right to choose the kind of education that shall be given to their children, unquote. This policy is highly objectionable that parents are forbidden to opt their children out of these biased and controversial classes, which may promote values contrary to their faith and beliefs. The EIE policy is also discriminatory in that it singles out for recognition and special treatment a special interest group, but denies those with differing moral values and approaches from receiving equal treatment and recognition under the policy. The government policy is destructive and therefore completely unacceptable. It should be immediately removed from the school curriculum in the province of Ontario. The Canadian and Ontario parents have been ignored, have been ordered and pushed around without any discretion on their part. This is offensive to the democratic way of life and to our concepts of democracy in Canada. Therefore, we can never, ever accept what Mr. McGuinty is attempting to impose on the Canadian and the Ontario parents and children. Thank you very much.
Good statement.
I don't want to repeat what Gwen just said. I think it's very clear that the provincial government over the past several years have been pushing the so-called equity and inclusive strategy. And it turns out that it's neither equal nor inclusive. It's trying to impose a radicalized sexual education curriculum, only to abandon it because of public outcry from concerned parents and pastors and other people. And but what is most troubling about the whole strategy is that in Kathleen Wayne's, the previous Minister of Education's word is, this is why I believe it is critical for us to articulate an equity and inclusive education strategy for Ontario schools, embracing diversity and moving beyond tolerance to acceptance. And you read between the lines, it means embracing diversity, it means accepting diversity and accepting the values of homosexual lifestyles and other diverse lifestyles by celebrating the Pride Parade. Another major objective of the EIE strategy is to require that students see themselves reflected in the curriculum and in their physical surroundings. In the Toronto District School Board document challenging homophobia and anti-heterosexism, released in early 2011, which was a brainchild of this policy. In the name of anti-bullying against students with diverse sexual orientations and gender identity, that document seeks to challenge the so-called biases of heterosexism in the curriculum by deconstructing, throwing away traditional or heterosexual notions of gender identity, sexual orientation, and family. Students as young as kindergarten are exposed to the homosexual lifestyles, to experiment with different gender roles, to celebrate the Pride Parade at school. I think the most troubling aspect of the EIE strategy is the exclusion of parental participation. A little known fact is in February 2010, the McGuinty government passed Bill 157, the Keep Our Kids Safe at School Act, which requires principals to notify the victims of inappropriate behaviors unless, this is a very important sentence, it is decided that doing so would cause the victim further harm. So in other words, principals do not have to report to the parents if they decided not to. Making the school officials having an overriding authority over our parents is a matter of grave concern. Who give them this authority? And in the TDSB document, it's clearly stated that schools should not send notes or permission slips home before starting any classroom discussions on the LGBTQ issues. And parents do not have the right to the child accommodated out of human rights education based on religious grounds. This is shutting out parents from their education, and this goes against any sensible education theory by involving their values to be connected to the school values. And this is a non-inclusive education. This is totalitarian education. And I would like to quote one more sentence from Kathleen Wei in commenting about the Toronto Catholic School Board's fight to amend the equity policy. She said, "It is not going away. The expectation is that they will have an equity and inclusive education policy and will allow students to form these groups to have these discussions in every school board in the province. It is not going to go away. They will have it." Sounds pretty dominating. And she says, "I think what the province can do is to provide the professional development support to the board to get them to the point where they understand how to do this." This sounds like communist brainwashing technique to me. So I think this is neither inclusive nor equity. It's a totalitarian, and as parents, we must speak out and assert our rights. We must ensure future Ontario governments respect our rights as parents to play a pivotal role in our children's education. Thank you.
My name is Teresa Pierre, and I'm from the Ontario Catholic Parents Association. The following groups and individuals could not be here today, but they wish to lend support to our statement and to make it known that there are many different groups who are concerned about this issue. It's not confined to just a few. So I bring greetings from Father Jeffrey Coors, General Secretary, Pan-Orthodox Association of Greater Hamilton, Joseph Ben-Ami, Canadian Centre for Policy Studies, David Novak, Professor of Religion and Philosophy at the University of Toronto, and Phil Horgan, Catholic Civil Rights League. I am the parent of 4 children, ages 5 to 13. They attend publicly funded Catholic schools in Toronto. I want to talk to you today about the Liberals' Education and Inclusive Education Policy, which former Education Minister Kathleen Wynne introduced to Ontario schools in 2008. It was a policy to promote diversity and inclusion in schools. I agree that the schools must promote understanding of different groups and concern for student safety. I definitely want, as a parent, bullying in all its forms addressed, and I want every student to feel safe in our schools. However, I have serious concerns about the fact that parents played no role in the formation of this policy, about the policy's questioning of traditional gender roles, and especially the sexual education component of it. Some parents will not mind, but I represent parents who do care about the direction that the ministry may be heading, and are alarmed by what they've seen happening in our schools. The delivery of certain themes, classroom direction, and study suggestions throughout the curriculum, in many cases crosses the line to intrude into areas for which parents retain authority. You probably recall that the sexual education curriculum announced last April by the ministry so disturbed parents that it was recalled in a matter of days. The OCPA is concerned that Kathleen Wynne has said in comments to Extra Magazine on September 7th that this curriculum is expected to be reintroduced following the election. We have concerns that it will be reintroduced without adequate consultation, without adequate safeguards to allow parents to be advised about what's going to be taught at school. And we cannot be assured that parents will be given an explanation of their rights to be exempted from the curriculum or to receive an alternative program respecting their cherished religious beliefs. In the Toronto Public Board, parents are not even being given the opportunity to opt their children out of these classes. despite the fact that the ministry has previously indicated that this right exists, at least according to a statement from Kathleen Wynne in 2008. It's time for parents to speak out about and defend their parental rights in education. We encourage parents to tell others what is going on in their schools. During the upcoming election, we would like parents to talk to their candidates of all parties, ask them what their belief is about this early sexual education curriculum, and vote for the ones that you think will respect parents' rights with respect to sexuality and family value education. Call your candidates and call our office if you need more information. Thanks very much.
教育有关系的朋友，最关心的是小孩子在受教育的时候是得到支持还是得到一个伤害。那么在他们推行这个平权的教育之中，把性的一切的不正常的要变成正常，这样的一种强迫的教育对小孩子的生长其实是有害处的。我可以看到这样的报告，但是从来没有看到一个报告说这样的教育让小孩子成长更好，这是没有看到的。所以他们把自己的一种思想强迫所有的人接受，这是不应该接受的。这是为什么我们要站出来讲话。我希望所有的选民一定要认识自己选区的候选人，知道他们在这个题目上他们是希望怎么样的一种了解。很多人都把这个片说 he believes in 的，他相信这是好的。这个在教育上的事情，你不能把自己一厢情愿的相信，强迫別人接受。
最後咧，我哋邀請嚟自多倫多天主教華人聯會嘅江如天先生咧，為我哋做總結。
Thank you for giving me a couple minutes in this presentation. 好多時候啲選民會啲朋友會問我咯，根據個經濟嚟講咧，我哋應該點樣選擇我哋嘅候選人或者係選擇我哋嘅政府咧？我成日都同佢哋講咧，就話加拿大係一個好細嘅經濟實體嚟嘅。如果我哋根據個經濟嘅狀況去選個議員或者係選個政府嘅時候咧，你係行錯咗路嘅。你應該根據你自己有啲政策，你傳統嘅政策，你認為係會影響到你個細路、你嘅 children、你嘅 next generation 嘅，你根據嗰啲政策嚟到選你哋嘅政府，而唔係根據佢講嘅政策。等於頭先好多個講者都講咗啦，佢哋嘅政策咧好多時係大同小異嘅。同時有一樣咧，今次嗰個 sexual education 嘅 policy 同埋個 EIE policy 咧係好洗腦式嘅。等於頭先阿黃醫生已經講咗啦，呢個 indoctrination 係將我哋嘅潛移默化，將我哋嘅細路咧係漸漸洗腦，係去接受佢哋嘅doctrine。呢樣嘢咧係我哋完全唔可以接受嘅。咁雖然我哋講就話呢個 event 係 not partisan，but I hope you could get some guideline in approaching the casting of your vote。或者我哋想講咧就話，我哋呢個聚會咧可以係講話無黨派，但係我想提醒你哋咧就係，你聽咗我哋咁多人講嘢之後咧，你 at least 至少你都有少少準則係教你哋點樣去行使你嘅公民權，行使你嘅選舉權。Thank you.
My name is Lou Iacobelli. I do a program for Radio Maria, HMWN. Radio Maria, it's in over 40 countries. I also am a blogger. I do research on my own, a single person. I don't have a staff or anybody to help me. And what I want to say, first of all, is to thank the panelists here this morning and the organizers. I have heard, in the last half hour, more sense about education and about the importance of being parents than I've heard from our media, the mainstream media, in the last 3 years since the equity policy was first conceived. My next point is, I've heard more wisdom about the equity policy than we've gotten from the entire Liberal Party about the equity policy. And as a father, and being also in the Catholic media, I want to thank you. Here is my question. I wrote to the organizers of the Leaders' Debate. I've been trying to get this issue on the agenda. The mainstream media, they won't listen to me. I'm just a single parent. But today I think we have a sense of strength. And here's the question I want to put to the panel. I wrote to Sun TV the CBC, Steve Bacon at TVO. These were the people behind the debate. And I said, here's the question that should be put to the leaders. Not questions about the economy. I'm not interested in the economy. The economy will take care of itself. Not transportation. Our kids will build their transportation in the future. But the question that should be asked, I said, is this. An equity policy that is going to redefine Canadian culture, not just for Ontarians. Redefine the meaning of marriage. Redefine the meaning of family. Threaten religious freedom. It threatens parental rights. It threatens the freedom of conscience. And our leaders, both in the Minister of Education and our Catholic, I'm sorry to say that he calls himself a Catholic, McGuinty is saying, he's saying this to teachers, violate parental rights because we've got the equity and inclusive education strategy. And so my question to you is, why do you think this has gone under the radar and we're not talking about it when every panelist here today recognizes the importance of parental rights, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and freedom of conscience? Thank you very much.
I think the reason why this is not being publicized is the secular media is in accordance with it. We rarely ever have objective reporting from the secular media. And certainly I can say the CBC and the CTV and TVO have their own agenda. They do not have the agenda of the public, and they're trying to impose it on the general population. Thank goodness some parents have stood up and said, we object, but not enough parents are told what's going on in the school. And Mr. McGuinty is hoping that parents will not know about this. And Kathleen Wynne, who drafted the sex education program, she doesn't want the people to know. She'll converse to the homosexual newspaper Extra, but she won't tell the public. And it is important that we spread the news that we should not be kept in ignorance. We should not be pushed down and ignored. And that's exactly what Mr. McGuinty is. It's an arrogant, elitist approach that parents should not interfere with his policies and his programs. And that is not acceptable in our democracy.
好多時咧，我哋見到呢啲政策一路行咗咁耐咧，都係一路咁行緊嗰啲壞嘅政策，就係因為當啲壞人喺度做壞事嘅時候咧，我哋啲好人咧就同佢合作。點樣合作咧？就當我哋壞人做壞事，但我哋唔出聲，一路由得佢做嗰陣，我哋就變成同佢合作。當你唔出聲嗰陣咧，你就係同嗰啲壞人合作。同時，我哋唔好忘記，今次呢個 sexual education 同埋個 EIE policy 咧，唔係淨係關於教會嘅，係關於所有人嘅。因為佢哋將呢個政策咧係擺落去公校教育局同埋天主教教育局，即係當你哋嘅下一代咧，將會由而家開始，如果佢嘅政策係執行嘅話，係會潛移默化咁樣一路去接受佢哋嗰套嘅準則，呢個係我哋完全係唔可以接受嘅。所以希望我哋嘅華裔選民咧，亦都好好地行使我哋嘅選舉權、我哋嘅公民權，去選一個你認為係合乎你道德、傳統道德價值嘅政府。唔好怕認為冇人去做，你就係開始去做嗰一個人啦。多謝。
我諗我哋中國人有句説話叫做孟母三遷啊，即係話咧見到個環境咧教壞我哋嘅仔女就搬屋啦。但係我哋發覺而家呢個情況咧唔係搬唔搬屋嘅問題啦，就係咧我哋間屋咧俾人入侵咗，即係我哋嘅仔女嘅思想啊，就有人咧就將啲我哋唔認同嘅價值觀念嚟到去灌輸俾我哋嘅仔女，跟住仲話唔該你哋出門口等我教完你嘅仔先交翻俾你啦咁。我覺得呢個咧係好唔可以接受嘅行為，呢個係我哋嘅家嚟嘅，呢個係我哋嘅仔女。我哋中國人咧係好沉默啊，即係通常咧都唔理呢件事，以為抌低啲仔女放咗佢翻學咧，咁就 O K 啦，佢學下 ABC 啊計數就 O K。原來唔記得咗咧，原來我哋嘅仔女咧係俾學校慢慢灌輸咗啲同我哋傳統價值、宗教價值、文化價值好唔同嘅觀念咧，而我哋都唔知道。我諗係時候我哋話，喂，呢個係我哋嘅家嚟啦，唔該你唔好入嚟啦，我哋應該起翻身嚟，站起嚟喺呢個選舉嘅時候咧，嚟到話 This is our home, you get out, not we get out, you get out， 所以你要係站起嚟。
The media are in bed with the government, and they like to make sure that their agenda gets moved forward. But one thing that's not been talked about is the funding. I think there's a lot of intimidation for real, implied. There's all different levels of intimidation on the administration, on the bishops of Ontario, and I think that's a real threat. And that's why there's very little pushback, in my opinion, by our Catholic school boards and by our Ontario bishops.
有啲嗰啲推動咁樣嘅政策啲人咧，其實佢唔係蠢嘅，佢哋好堅惑嘅，佢可以將某啲有名啲人嘅講啲嘢咧，淨係斷章取義啫，咁啊就好似係支持佢哋論調，唔可以俾佢壓到啊！佢可以話啊某某人支持我哋啊，佢係你哋嘅主教啊，唔係啊！你真係睇佢個信咧，一句一句睇落去咧，冇一個字眼係支持咁樣嘅政策嘅。只不過身為係主教嘅話，會同人哋講，你要堅持自己嘅信仰嘅原則，同埋由生活出嚟。如果你係生活出嚟咁嘅原則，絕對唔會同意咁樣嘅教育政策嘅。
所以好多謝各位記者朋友，多謝每一位嘅講者。咁好似頭先所講嘅，我哋係即係唔會喺呢度打算去所謂幫邊個黨、邊個政府或者邊個嘅候選人，但係好似我哋頭先所講嘅，天地同埋呢個時間咧都係永恆嘅，有啲嘅原則都係永恆嘅，包括咗家長嘅權利同埋小孩子嘅福祉。咁所以咧，我哋呼籲每一位嘅省民、每一位嘅呢個嘅選民咧，能夠根據呢個咁重要嘅一個嘅原則咧，係去決定你應該選邊位候選人咧咁樣樣。咁同時咧，亦都希望你過咗呢個選舉之後，仍然繼續為呢個嘅理念去堅持你本來想做嘅嘢。多謝各位。
我睇少學校嘅教導，因為咧我都好感謝我過去細個時候學校對我教導，所有嘅知識、所有做人嘅方向，甚至我自己個人嘅信仰，都係喺學校嗰度學翻嚟。但係咧，每個人都總會喺學校度學到啲曳嘢。我可以話俾你聽，唔好睇小老師嘅影響力。我仲記得中二嘅年代，我嘅國文老師無端端喺堂上面講話黃霑寫咗本筆文集。我哋就攞住呢一樣嘢，我哋全班入面有10個人喺中二嘅時候買咗一本唔應該喺嗰個年代睇嘅書翻嚟，仲要當我嘅爸爸媽媽問我點解你睇呢本書啊？先生今日上堂講嘅，細路仔好中意攞藉口咁，所以如果你唔想你嘅小朋友喺學校入面學到啲唔應該學到嘅嘢，係時候作為父母或者作為投票者去同你嘅即係政客啦，或者係用你嘅神聖一票去改造我哋嘅未來。記住，小朋友我哋未來嘅主人翁，學阿丁明所講，經濟係大勢所趨。如果你小朋友唔好嘅，呢個世界冇未來㗎啦。喺呢度咧，多謝咁多位今日前嚟我哋呢個記者招待會，亦都有請咧一啲嘉賓咧可以上嚟咧同我哋一齊影張大合照嘅。